News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
KBNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by U&I Furniture. Local businessman Mark Ensign has jumped into the race as a write-in candidate to face off against current Cache County Executive David Zook in November. On KBNU's For the People program on Monday, Ensign explained why he decided to run.
Well, since the initial filing deadline earlier this year, multiple concerns have emerged concerning the relationship between the county executive and the county council and county offices. And I've been encouraged by many concerned parties to help restore order, trust, and cooperation to our county government. And I know, Jason, it's an uphill battle, but sure. I think it's a battle that needs to be fought at this point.
Ensign was asked what his view is of the role of the county executive.
Jason, I go back to when our form of government, our county form of government, was originally set up. And, unlike most counties who have county commissioners, in this county, we established a county council, which is to function primarily like a board of directors would in a private company.
Okay.
And then the county executive works with the council, but the county executive's primary responsibility is to work with the 35 different county departments to provide services to members of the county.
Ensign said he believes the county executive functions as a liaison between the county council, which is like a legislative branch that sets policy, makes laws, and determines spending, with the county offices that have the responsibility of actually carrying out the functions of government. You can find out more about his campaign at ensignforcachecounty.com. KBNU News Time is 4:07. KBNU weather for tonight, mostly clear skies, low around 50, and then partly cloudy Wednesday morning and partly sunny in the afternoon, and a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, high temperature in the upper 70s. 70% chance of rain with a few thunderstorms Wednesday night. Chance of showers mainly in the morning, about a 30% chance. High temperature on Thursday in the upper 60s. We've been in the 80s today. It's 81 currently at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by Napa Auto Parts. When you buy Napa Auto Parts, you're getting the best. Need a battery or wiper blades? Pull into any of the 5 locally owned Preston to Providence locations. They'll make sure you are getting the right size and even help you install it at Napa Auto Parts.
It's a busy time of year with a change of seasons from summer to fall. And with kids back in school, check out U&I Furniture student desks and chairs to give them a dedicated place to study. If you want a better night's sleep, U&I can help you. They feature the full line of Maloof and therapeutic mattresses, from inner spring to hybrid to the popular foam mattresses, including gel-infused memory foam. And if you sleep hot, have U&I show you the copper memory foam mattress that'll keep you cool. Helping furnish your home for over 90 years. There's always a better buy at U&I Furniture, downtown Logan.
KBNU News Time is 4:08. A federal judge has approved a Utah-based resort company's $76 million bid to buy Jay Peak Resorts, the Vermont ski area that was at the center of a financial scandal involving its former owner and president. Pacific Group Resorts owns 5 ski areas. Last week, it won the auction to buy Jay Peak. A federal judge in Miami approved the bid on Friday. The company had originally offered to buy Jay Peak for $58 million, but the court-appointed receiver wanted to be able to hold an auction if there were other qualified bids. And the University of Idaho's plan to build the nation's largest research dairy and experimental farm has cleared a big hurdle. Idaho Governor Brad Little and two other statewide elected officials on the Idaho Land Board on Tuesday approved the university's plan to use $23 million to buy roughly 640 acres of farmland in south central Idaho, the heart of the state's dairy industry. The 2,000-cow research dairy could help the state's dairy industry find solutions for greenhouse gas emissions from animals, land, and water pollution and waste systems. The proposed Center for Agriculture, Food, and the Environment could also bring in millions of dollars of research grants to the school. KBNU News Time is 4:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Keeping you informed. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, and online at 610kvnu.com.
It's been a crazy few months, with big rainstorms fueling the weeds in your lawn, garden, or empty lot, and the spiders coming inside to beat the heat. You need help. Let Logan Extermination take care of those pesky weeds and unwanted pests with an exterior lawn application and interior treatment for bugs. Call Logan Extermination today before your home becomes enemy territory. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
Weed control starts at $45. Interior spider spray starts at $95.
Did you know a block dryer vent is a real fire hazard? According to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, there are tens of thousands of dryer exhaust duct fires annually, leading to many injuries and death. You should have your dryer hose and the area around it cleaned once a year and inspect the vent and hose for any blockages at least every 6 months. Don't wait for disaster to strike because your dryer vent is blocked. Give John Henson a call at the Duct Hunter. Call 770-4813 today.
Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
The Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council present the story of Cynthia and Ed.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, out of the blue, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. And she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn or just stay at the stop sign. She wasn't even really sure where she was at. She was very concerned. It was very unsettling for her.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it, to bring the family in on it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you and we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cache Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Wednesday. Where's my brain today, Bill? It is Tuesday. I've got it right. September 20th. That part I knew. I'm Jason Williams, Bill Walter here in the studio, and it is warm outside today. What's our high so far?
80-something. It's 81 right now.
That's actually not bad, but it feels a lot warmer than that. We had a listener inquire about that, wanting to know if, basically if the National Weather Service was wrong. National Weather Service apparently reporting today a high of 75 here in Cache Valley. So, just to clear that up, I don't see them reporting that. I see them reporting 82, so a degree higher than we're actually sitting at here at the station. But it is not 75, that's for sure. It's news from Cache Valley we can start things off with here today. This is a press release from Cache County and the county executive's office. There was a trip made to Washington, D.C. last week, and this was a group of people. I'm not sure who all went, but I know that visits were made to Senator Lee and Romney's offices, our Senate representatives, and all four congressional representatives, Moore, Stewart, Owens, and Curtis, and representing the county, Cache County Executive David Zook, thanked members of the delegation for what he said was, serving and representing, which is, that's their job. And so he thanked them for that, but the purpose of the trip, there's quite a big conversation we can have about this. The purpose of the trip were meetings with legislative directors and other staff who work for the members of Congress. And for those not familiar, oftentimes, obviously, your congressional representatives, they're just one person. So they have key staff members who are charged with different duties when it comes to liaison type stuff, talking with leaders from counties and cities in their district, or in the case of Lee and Romney for the state. And so there are contacts within a congressional office, for example, or a Senate office. And these people get to know each other. But the reason I explain that, it in no way should imply that your elected officials are kind of blowing off city or county leaders. It's just a simple fact that they want them to have a direct line to their congressional representative or United States senator. But it's not realistic that they could just, here's my cell phone and I will answer every time. That's not likely to happen. They're actually pretty busy when they're out there. So especially in those Votorama days just before a break. But I shouldn't make fun. But sometimes, it's the Congress. You got it, right? So meetings were held with representatives from all around the state of Utah, including Cache County Executive David Zook, with members of Congress to talk about local needs and have a direct back and forth. And Cache County Executive Office released a press release on this today, said, some of the specific topics they discussed were challenges. And now this has come up in two different situations here in Cache County. One that's affecting Logan City directly, and the other is affecting the county at large because the county's directly involved with UDOT in discussions around the, revamping, widening, basically, of Valley View Highway. That is a state road, which means UDOT calls the shots. But Cache County, is giving direct feedback because here at the local level, the county knows more of what's been going on with, traffic and traffic patterns and things like that. So if you remember when this all started, there were a couple of different plans thrown out with Valley View Highway. One was just 4 lanes all the way to the summit. Another was, I think, thrown back. I believe it was thrown back by UDOT. I'm not sure if this was an alternative county plan, but I think UDOT came back and said, well, what if it's 4 lanes, down to 2 lanes, back to 4 lanes, down to 2 lanes? And the county said, that seems problematic. And it would be. The bottlenecks that would be created at certain times of day, you run the risk of actually exacerbating the traffic issue you're trying to solve with that. So it was good the county stepped in and said, hey, here's some of our data. Everything was going fine. Well, I don't know. It seemed like everything was going fine. And then as with what happened with Logan City and 1400 North and 6th West, the railroad stepped in. And it's I was going to say it's an unwritten rule, but it's actually written in some places. But because of the importance of the railroad in commerce, in our economy, and that maybe waned for a while, but it's now on the wax again. That's growing as a means of transportation for goods and livestock, even, and agriculture. It's really important right now for agriculture in some parts of the country. But throughout, even in the waning years, when it was used even less than it is today and than it was previous, the railroads kind of call the shots. I mean, when it comes to, and there is actually good reasons for that. You could have a county or a city intentionally or unintentionally build in such a way that they've built too close, or they have built too low. That actually happened in one part of the country. That city got sued because they've been told by the railroad not to, and they did it anyway. And then it wasn't a widely used track, but eventually a train came along, and guess what? That pedestrian bridge went down, and people were injured on the train. And so the city was sued and lost. So there are good reasons for these rules, but it can complicate things. And as we discussed with Logan City Mayor Holly Daines, there is also a reasonable argument that can be made with that intersection, 1400 North and 6th West, that the railroad is being a little heavy and ham-handed in that. Basically what they're saying is that they want the city, if the city is going to put a stoplight there, they want the city to pay some maintenance costs. And I believe it was something like $30,000 a year. I mean, it's just a pretty unjustifiable amount for what would actually probably be required, which would maybe be a few thousand a year. And the justification is look, you're going to increase traffic there. That traffic's going to be going over the tracks. That's going to require more maintenance. And so maybe the railroad knows something Logan City doesn't, or maybe the railroad just gets away with this. And by railroad, I mean, the rules, federal regulations even that surround the railroad and jurisdiction and decision-making authority. So that's the setup. That was part of the discussion that happened in Washington, D.C. And again, this was Mr. Zook, county executive, traveled with others, and I'm not sure from where, but other parts of the state dealing with some of these similar issues. And they expressed in these meetings some of these concerns, explained, as Mr. Zook has here on the show during the county hour, the difficulty that this kind of puts Cache County. And when it comes to the county and the railroad, that situation is kind of similar. Basically, what the railroad is saying, and again, what federal regulations give them the authority right now to say, is stymieing the entire project for Valley View Highway. And it's sometimes been expressed by folks off the record, so I won't put names to this, that the railroad has a tendency, okay, I'll just say it was a state lawmaker now retired that told me this once, that the railroad has a tendency to make their declaration and then not negotiate, just not pick up the phone or respond to an email after that, because they know that in most of these cases, federal regulations are on their side. And again, there are good reasons for these regulations, but there is also a justifiable argument that the railroad isn't always going to be right, that there are going to be things a local entity might know or might be able to show in negotiations that would, should cause the railroad and the decision makers that be representing the railroad to say, okay, we know we could just run roughshod over you and make the decision here, but your presentation was convincing or reasonable or whatever it might be, and so it looks like we could maybe reach a compromise. But if they just refuse, there's little recourse at this point for a city or county, which seems a little imbalanced. So this was part of the discussion that happened as these leaders from Utah, including, again, Cache County Executive David Zook, met with all four of Utah's congressional representatives and both senators in these meetings that happened last week in Washington, D.C. Now, according to the press release and statements from Zook, Nothing was really resolved in those meetings, but Zook said in a statement, he said, it was great to see the level of support and, quote, concern our representatives and their staff have for our needs in these situations. So the implication there is that our federal representatives were sympathetic. They understood that this is a challenge, and they were, I assume, presented with all the details of the proposals as they are for the situation Logan City's in directly with the railroad, and the situation the counties currently and UDOT are currently trying to hammer out with the railroad on Valley View Highway. And they got a thumbs up from our federal representatives. The question now is what happens next? So included in the press release is a comment from Cache Valley Chamber of Commerce president, good friend of the show as well, Jamie Andrus. And she said, we're really proud of the engagement opportunities that we're able to facilitate through our Legislative Affairs Committee, and which was how this meeting happened. And she said that meeting, during the legislative session with Utah lawmakers, meeting as often as possible in Washington, D.C. with federal lawmakers and representatives, they're able to determine priorities and directly communicate more productively. And she said that having this close working relationship will produce resolution to this. What that might be, I mean, there are a lot of different things, because there were a lot of other things discussed. They also talked about crime, suicide rates in Cache Valley and throughout other parts of the state. They talked about the Congressman Moore's Bear River Heritage Act and how that may affect counties, even maybe bring some funding in for counties that could help with everything from housing issues to transportation issues. And of course, a big part of the discussion, Zook said, was water infrastructure. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. Anytime you're talking to a member of Congress from Utah right now, water is probably going to come up. And they also talked about the recommendations made by the Cache County's Cache Housing Crisis Task Force. So they talked about a lot of things, and why would the Cache Valley Chamber of Commerce president be weighing in? Well, I mean, this all ties to commerce, all of it. People in the AM and afternoons especially, driving Valley View Highway or coming through the 14th North and 6th West intersection, are most of them, I would wager at certain times of day, a good 95% of that traffic is tied to commerce somehow. Those are people coming to or from work. And the whole point of this is to ease some transportation woes. This isn't a situation with these two specific intersections or crossings in the case of Valley View Highway. This isn't just some wish list Logan City or Cache County had to just, wouldn't it be nice if? It's not like that. They're actively trying, with UDOT backing them, to solve some traffic and transportation problems. And they're trying to do that also looking ahead. With Valley View Highway, that's especially the case. The traffic's as heavy as it is now. Imagine, 10, 15 years from now when we've got 30% more people living here and driving here. So these are not trivial, frivolous requests or plans that the county, and in the case of the city's Logan City in this case, have put together or are trying to achieve. And so it really raises a question like, should Congress take this up? Should they look at this and say, look, there's hardly a road out there right now, and there will probably be more in the future for tracks that currently aren't used that maybe will be reemployed for light rail transit. There's a loop here in Cache Valley that one day is probably going to be a light rail system like tracks. I mean, this is decades from now, but still. And when that happens, with the rules as they're currently writ, are the railroads going to just be able to repeatedly say to cities and the county, no, you can't do that? Even if the city and the county is trying to solve a problem that's very real with a solution that's very responsible. I mean, there's a small possibility that what's been proposed there's some legitimate reason to reject it. But the way it really looks from the outside, with the information I have and have been presented by Logan City leaders and county leaders, including Mr. Zook himself, it really feels to me like the railroad has said no because they can, and they don't want to make the effort or the expense. And if that's happening all over the country, as populations grow, as the needs and demands on cities increase when it comes to transportation, even if we're seeing wider adoption of public transit and more, to say, the cities and counties just have no recourse if a decision is made by the railroad, I don't know. I'm happy to see this meeting took place. I'm frustrated because even a productive conversation with Congress, our representatives especially, you're still looking at something that, that the earliest you'd probably see a bill and a vote would be a year from now. But let's get this process started, maybe. Check it out. I've posted a link to the press release from Cache County on this meeting last week and some of the other things they discussed as well. This is just the one that stuck in my brain on our Facebook page. And we'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
It's hot outside, and that means it's time for Ram Trucks Make This the Summer event at Heritage. We're halfway through the summer, but you can still get a red-hot deal on a new Ram truck. Whether you're looking forward to a summer camping trip or just want to turn some heads pulling into your hometown rodeo. And with 0% financing on select models, there's never been a better time to get yourself into a Ram from Heritage. Wherever your adventures take you this summer, Heritage will get you there. Ram Trucks at Heritage, your hometown dealer with the biggest deals.
Looking for a job or a career change? Plan to attend Cache Valley Media Group's Job Fair Thursday, September 22nd at Castle Manor in Hyde Park from 11 to 6. Turn at 3900 North Highway 91 in Hyde Park. Be prepared to talk with businesses looking for employees now. JBS USA, Maverick, R.R. Donnelly, Clarfield Job Cap, TTM Technologies, Young Auto, FedEx, and more. Better pay, better benefits, better job. Attend the Job Fair Thursday, September 22nd from 11 to 6 p.m. at Castle Manor in Hyde Park. Presented by the Cache Valley Media Group.
Did you know that the coronavirus can damage the inner ear, leading to chronic dizziness and tinnitus, which is a constant ringing or buzzing noise? But there's hope. For help and more information, call 800-837-8428 or visit liferebalanced.org and discover a life rebalanced. That's 800-837-8428 or liferebalanced.org. Sponsored by the Vestibular Disorders Association.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to KVN News For the People. A great way to wrap this conversation up. An amazing, honestly amazing comment from a listener here. And this perfectly sums it up. It seems like the way the rules should be written is that conversation and negotiation should be forced. And outside of that, the rules shouldn't define anything. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I get that when it comes to the railroad, there have to be rules. I'm not saying any city in Cache Valley or that the county themselves would ever do this, but if trains move pretty fast and they know what is best for safety, and there are reasons that they, some of the rules might seem silly. I've always thought the easement that is required is they're lengthy easements, but I was informed by an inspector, a safety inspector for the railroad, that one of the reasons they do that is that they need to be able to get emergency vehicles up the side of the tracks in some situations with trains still being able to pass through. And as soon as I was told that, I'm like, oh, that actually makes sense. I get it now. I no longer think that huge easement on each side of the track is unnecessary. So there are good reasons for some of these rules, and I don't have a problem with them being spelled out. But there should be, as this listener has texted in here, there should be also written into the rules a requirement that says, when a city comes with a plan, when a city has an express need to solve a very real and provable problem, the railroad can't just say no and then walk away. They have to sit down, negotiate, and come to some kind of a compromise. Now, obviously, if it's a safety issue and the railroad can show that, then, the city shouldn't overrule. No city should be able to say, who cares? No one really drives there anyway. You don't want that. But if it's an issue where the railroad, like with Logan City, just wants a certain amount that they've estimated for maintenance, and the city believes that's exorbitant, the railroad should have to talk with the city. Now, in the case of Logan City, that's happening, but slowly, and it's stymieing the whole plan for that northern part of 6th West, and that would even affect 10th West. That's a pretty highly trafficked area of the day as people are getting off work especially, and in the mornings, the AM hours. So Logan City has a very provable need to solve a problem, and if $30,000, if Logan City can show that maintenance could be done far less than that, the railroad should have to talk. And like I say, in this case, it sounds like that is happening on the railroad schedule. I guess my point here is it really seems like the federal regulations default to the railroad and can leave cities and the county, any county, high and dry. There are situations, even here in Utah, where the railroad has just said no, just absolutely no, and the project came to an end. That has happened. And I would like to assume, and I think it's safe to assume there's always been good reason for that, but it is a possibility that there was a counter-argument that should have been heard. So, like this listener said, it should be written into the rules. There should be some way to put in there and say, look, you can't just say no and leave it at that. You can't just throw out a number for maintenance and leave it at that. If you can show, if the railroad, for example, can show that $30,000 a year is exactly what it would cost to maintain a higher traffic crossing with a stoplight, or if there's some other safety concern that would require that expense, then fine. Maybe Logan City will have to pay that every year. But if there is room to negotiate, if Logan City can say that maintenance can be done for far less reasonably and show that, they should have to talk. 753-5868. Again, this all stems from a press release from Cache County this afternoon detailing a trip taken to Washington, D.C. last week by Utah leaders, including Cache Valley's County Executive David Zook, meeting with members of Congress, our 2 United States Senate representatives, and expressing some of these concerns. They talked about a lot else: crime, water management, water development, housing crisis, the results of that task force that presented to the county at Riverwoods Conference Center recently, mental health resources, and more. So there was a lot discussed. But this is the one that, again, stuck with me. That was a topic in which they said to members of Congress, Cache County Executive David Zook said in a statement, we expressed to them that, these issues are delaying, necessary improvements and changes. And we need our elected officials at the federal level to take this up and to at least start a discussion on some changes that can be made. Because right now, the railroad basically has all the power. We'll be back with more of KVN News for the People after these headlines with KVN News' Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:38, and the news is brought to you by Whole Tree Care. The University of Oregon's interim president published a letter condemning intolerance after a group of fans was filmed shouting an offensive chant directed at members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at a game against BYU. The viral video was taken in the stands in Eugene, Oregon during Saturday's football game. The BYU athletic department accepted the school's apologies in a statement to KUTV by Associate Athletic Director for Communications and Media Strategy, John McBride. He said, quote, "We recognize that this isolated behavior does not reflect the values of the University of Oregon. As we all work together to address incidents that seek to divide us, we are grateful for those who are willing to come together to build bridges of understanding," end of quote. Fire officials were called to a new wildfire in Provo Canyon on Monday. They said the fire, officially called the South Fork Fire, was estimated at 23 acres and located south of Vivian Park on U.S. Forest Service land. Utah fire officials said there were no threats to any structures as of Sunday. They said multiple resources, including a helicopter, responded to the scene to assist in suppression efforts. Additional details were not initially provided. And a 4.4 magnitude earthquake shook the ground near St. George at the border of Utah and Arizona. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the earthquake occurred at approximately 3:18 p.m. on Monday. They said the epicenter was located 47 kilometers, or about 30 miles east-southeast of Littlefield, Arizona. Damage or injuries caused by the earthquake were not initially known. Their website indicated over 250 people had reported feeling the quake. KVNU News Time is 4:41.
Man, let's talk about something serious.
I tried the pill. It didn't work.
No, I'm talking about your yard, specifically trees and shrubs. They need your attention. You can't just let them grow unruly and wild, like your beard.
Hey!
Call Hull Tree Care. They have the crew, the experience, and knowledge to trim your trees and shrubs right. Call 760-6587 and ask for their radio discount. Hull Tree Care. That's Hull Tree Care. 760-6587.
KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear skies is our forecast, and overnight low around 50. Partly cloudy, 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon tomorrow. High temperature in the upper 70s, 70% chance of rain Wednesday night, 30% chance of some morning showers on Thursday. It's been to 83. It's 81 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. Contact their Cache Valley team to protect what's yours at northernsteelbuilding.com. Value from concept to construction. Call 435-677-7300. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is Tammy Siemens bringing you the Daily Financial Market Report for September 20th. On behalf of financial advisor T.J. Davis and Edward Jones. August housing starts beat expectations, but building permits slow. Housing demand has fallen sharply in the recent months as higher interest rates hit consumers and priced out potential buyers. Thus, reports have started to trickle in showing builders have been forced to lower their prices even as cost inputs have risen and builder sentiment has been falling. In August, housing starts rose unexpectedly, but housing permits fell by more than 10%. Housing permits are a leading indicator for housing activity, and the drop points to further slowing in the sector. Housing was one of the biggest winners from the pandemic as prices rose sharply on high demand and low interest rates. The Dow Jones closed down 313 points at 30,707. The NASDAQ closed down 110 points at 11,425. The S&P 500 closed down 44 points at 3,856. In commodity markets, the price of crude oil was down $1.24 at $84.12, and the spot price of gold was down $4.50 to $1,673.70. In stocks of local interest, Thermo Fisher closed down at $7.51 at 532.16. Zions Bancorp closed down 68 cents at 57.70. Autoliv was down $2.38 at 73.16. Northrop Grumman was up $5.93 at 494. Home Depot was down $6.25 at $274.17. Lowe's Companies was down $4.69 at $190.41. This has been today's financial market report and stocks of local interest, brought to you on behalf of Edward Jones, member SIPC, and the financial advisor T.J. Davis, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 575 East, 1400 North, Suite 150 North Logan. If you would like additional information, please contact our office at 435-753-0153 or one of any of the 7 local branches located in Providence, Logan, and Smithfield.
What's more important than sleep? Granted, some things are, but not many. This is Ryan at My Mattress, and here we offer the best solution to better sleep, a better mattress. IntelliBed, the gel mattress, cradles your hips and shoulders while providing the best back support possible. Or come in and choose a Tempur-Pedic that boasts 93% of their owners love their bed. My Mattress, offering the best sleep possible by the South Walmart.
This is the sound of one person walking. This is another. Imagine the sound of more than 5 million footsteps, one for every American living with Alzheimer's disease. Add in the millions more who feel its effects, and think about the impact we can make when we all walk together to put an end to Alzheimer's for good. Join the Alzheimer's Association Walk to End Alzheimer's today. Register now at alz.org/walk.
Don't miss the Walk to End Alzheimer's Saturday, September 24th at Merlin Olsen Park. Registration starts at 9 a.m.
Oh, I forgot, Bill. I was gonna tell you to find Lost in Space clip of Robot screaming "Danger, Will Robinson." So just pretend you heard that coming back, because I forgot to ask Bill to cue that up. But the Utah legislature is in session.
Or I could do it.
Can you
Danger,
do it?
Will Robinson.
There you go. That's actually pretty good. Yeah, Utah legislature in session. Special session, not 45-day. So less damage done. I shouldn't talk that way. That's cynical and mean. But at the same time, lately, it is how I feel. They are taking up some important things, though. A lot to be discussed. But one of the things that has caught my eye, because I love them, I think they foster transparency and accountability. As I've said many times with the audits that are being done, again, thankfully, by Cache County, of their own processes. Nearly 3 decades without them. Now they're happening again on the regular. And hats off to Jess Bradfield for that. But these are the state level. And some of them are tackling some things that listeners might not care that much about. If you do, feel free to call and we can discuss them. But I'm going to pass over some of these things. Like right now, in fact, on the legislative floor, and you can hear this via le.utah.gov if you want to watch or listen, but they are currently going over a audit of the Inland Port Authority. For those not familiar, a quick explanation. This is a Salt Lake issue, but it is kind of a state issue. It was sort of rammed through, and that's why things got off to a bad start, by former Speaker of the House and perpetual candidate for everything, Greg Hughes. And he's a nice guy. He's a friend, but I can poke him in the eye that way. He likes it. But he sort of pushed this through in his final session as Speaker of the House, and it set Salt Lake City off. There was a lawsuit, which Salt Lake City kind of won. There was a port authority created in that original legislation, which melded down, and they had to find a new chair, and then they had to find a second new chair, and then just a couple of weeks ago, a judge ordered the whole thing to kind of come to a stop because some processes laid out in updated legislation were not being followed. I mean, it's been a boondoggle from the start. The original idea might be a good one. I don't know. It's to build a trucking and rail yard called an inland port that would be roughly out over some of the marshes near Salt Lake County or Salt Lake City. But it's within Salt Lake City. So one of the original issues is the state was trying to sort of cheat Salt Lake out of the revenue and pocket it themselves. That's Salt Lake City. They won. that lawsuit. So everything's been rocky with this, and there was an audit, and the audit made some recommendations, which were more along the lines of transparency and being a little more careful with taxpayer dollars. The legislature was in a hurry with this one. Another audit was presented, though, and discussed by the legislature involving, this was a report, an audit on wildfires themselves. And this one was fascinating. This is the one I'd like to focus on. During the briefing on this, which happened just a couple of hours before our show started today, you can still watch the entire proceedings if you want even more detail than I'll be able to go into here, because it got a little, bad pun, in the weeds on this, but all of it was interesting. But the discussion was basically about how much has been spent on wildfire mitigation and fire fighting. By the way, this was presented by the Administers Forestry Program Leads at the Utah Department of Natural Resources. And this was an audit requested by the legislature, but done by the agency itself, because it wasn't a punitive audit. This was the legislature saying, we want a good snapshot. We want to know how much has been spent by the state. We want to see the trends over the years. We want to see how much has been spent on mitigation, and if there's anything you can show us on those efforts, how well they've worked, how well they've not worked, how things, maybe certain things were in wide practice as far as mitigation a few years ago, and now those things don't work. And we as lawmakers don't really know any of this, so we'd like to know, because we're going to have to, vote on Utah spending federal infrastructure funds the state has received from that Biden infrastructure package last fall. They also can still spend they're still sitting on some coronavirus rescue package money. They have until 2024, I think, to spend all that. So they've got some federal money to throw around, and they obviously recognize that wildfires have always been a part of our summers, but they're a growing part of our summers. We got lucky this year, though. I just want to keep pointing that out. So far, fingers crossed, knock on wood. I shouldn't jinx us there, but so far, unfortunately, the wildfire season likely to extend into October this year due to the drought. So, what does it look like out there? Well, what was presented in the briefing today was super interesting. Data from the Utah Department of Natural Resources and the FFSL, as they're called. It showed basically a lot fewer wildfires than previous years in 2022. 893 wildfire starts, less than 1,200 prior average of less than the 1,200 prior average of the last 5 years. So they took an average of 5 years, and this year only 893. Now that's still a lot, obviously, and each one of those costs the state money, either through federal funds that the state has to spend and not use for other things, or directly through state coffers and taxpayer dollars collected by the state. And this is, by the way, not including what the federal government spends themselves directly in aiding states like Utah and Arizona and New Mexico, more so than a lot of other states, well, in California, the last couple of years at least, in federal monies through emergency aid and things like that. So the audit showed that in 2022, so far, we've seen fewer wildfires than in the last 5 years average, which was 1,200, averaged out for the 5 years previous. Other good news, human-caused wildfires were actually down 19% in 2022 from the 2021 number, and down 34% from the 10-year average. So to translate that, we are being more careful. We definitely were more careful this summer than last summer. But over the last 10 years, there's an obvious downward trend in human-caused wildfires. The bad news, the majority of the 893 wildfires were still human-caused. So it's still a majority by far, but it's 19% less than last year were human-caused, and an overall 10-year trend of about a 34% increase in what were people doing 10 years ago? 34% of wildfires, or sorry, not even that, 84% of wildfires, a 34% decrease Wow. Were people just walking around tossing sparklers into the fields?
Makes you wonder.
Well, I mean, I don't know, some kind of celebration that got out of hand. I don't know, but the 10 years ago numbers don't make us look great. But yeah, this is good news. Deputy Director at Utah FFSL, Jason Curry, said Utahns are definitely doing more to prevent wildfires themselves. And this year, in contrast with last year, especially, Curry said, has been a great year. This means they are not asking the Utah legislature for more money, which would be a first in 6 years that they haven't had to meet with the legislature in the early fall interim at the end of September and ask for more money for the remainder of the wildfire season because they already spent everything they had. So this is all good news, especially in a year that was even more of a wildfire risk than last summer because it's the second year of the drought. The internal audit, also reported a 95% catch rate for wildfires, which means that only 10%, only 10 acres burned before, on average, only 10 acres, in the biggest fires, only 10 acres burned before they were extinguished. That is good. And that is, it's calculated as a catch rate. That's a 95% catch rate. They give them some variance up to 10 acres in that metric. The representative said they were very impressed by that data because what that means basically is that as far as Utah and how we're funding firefighting efforts, we're doing something right, at least. Check it out. I've linked to it on our Facebook page, and we'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
For over 40 years, Wheatland Seed has helped area farmers succeed by lowering input costs and increasing returns. Now, to maximize your returns, we're offering our highest prices of the season for safflower. We'll arrange pickup on your new crop safflower that's not already contracted, or you can deliver to our Brigham City facility. For details, call Hunter or Pete at wheatlandseed.com. That's wheatlandseed.com.
You can't beat fall in Utah. It's one of the best times to get out and explore the open roads of Utah. Get out and drive in a new Murdoch Volkswagen and get up to 3.65% APR for 5 years on Volkswagen's top lineup, a 2022 Jetta, Atlas, or Tiguan. When you walk through our doors, you feel like family at Murdoch Volkswagen in Logan or online at murdochvw.com.
Call 866-628-3065 to see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 10/1/22.
This is Jace Allen with Allen Mortuaries. From our family to yours, thank you for voting Allen Mortuaries Best Funeral Home of Northern Utah and Best Funeral Home of Cache Valley. We sincerely appreciate the confidence and trust your family has given us over the past 83 years. When you trust us with the final preparations of your loved one, you get the kind of caring, personalized service you can only expect from a family-owned funeral home. It's our family serving yours. Voted Best Funeral Home of Cache Valley in Northern Utah, Allen Mortuaries. Then, now, always.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the Getaway Guru. Join me on The Travel Show every Saturday at 11 a.m., and I'll tell you where to go and how to get there with the best travel deals on the planet, including how to travel more and pay less, free this and free that promotions, and insider secrets on what the airlines, cruise lines, and hotels don't want you to know, along with your call-in travel questions every Saturday, 11 a.m., right here on News Talk 610 KVNU.
One final note from this kind of rushed discussion of the Utah Legislative interim session today. Exact dollar amount on what was not spent this year on fighting wildfires because people were far more careful. Just to put this in perspective, when we talk about wildfires, we often talk about, you don't want to be that person in the news. Hey, I burned my neighborhood down. Everybody had to evacuate and lost their homes because I decided to light a firework in the unincorporated part of the county for fun. You don't want to be that person. You don't want your children to be that person. That's a good incentive to not be dumb with flammables in a drought year or any year here in Utah. But here's some context for those who don't have teenagers they worry about or know that they would never do this themselves. The reason you want to do this, price tag. Just because humans started fewer wildfires this summer than last summer, according to the report presented to lawmakers today, taxpayers saved $32 million. $32 million fewer spent fighting wildfires this year than last year because we were a lot more careful. It's an eye-opening report, an audit by the Utah Department of Natural Resources on firefighting mitigation and fighting expenses requested by the legislature. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. They're still talking about it if you want.